Ta-da! We are live. It's so fun to go live on Facebook. So I'm Laura Rubinstein here with the Transform Your Relationships show live with Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. Hi, Rhoberta. How are you today?
Hi, Laura. Well, I'm really good, and as you can tell by the background, I am in a cabin on the ocean, so a little different today.
That's so cool. Well, that's the beauty of going live. We can be virtual as long as we have some connection to the internet. It's powerful to be able to serve on the road. So today, speaking of serving, that's kind of in our title today. Our title is Deserving. It has serving in there. Interesting. I just realized that. So this word deserve has always been, well, I would say for the last 20 years, it's been on my mind, and I have a little issue with it. Maybe other people have an issue with deserving. And let's talk about what does deserving mean, and as opposed to also or including, how does it relate to your birthright? So let's start off with deserving. What are your
Yes,
thoughts?
and are you willing to share what you have a problem with?
Yeah, as we go along, I mean, my problem is deserving feels like it feels like I do have to earn something. And
Oh,
you're deserving if you've earned it. Now, birthright is I am worthy of it just because I'm here. It's my birthright. And that to me is a place I can resonate, as a word I can resonate with and work toward aligning with. Deserving, I don't know that I can overcome my definition of it is, or maybe I can if you give me a new definition, but um, when you look up deserving in the dictionary, it actually says, and I did so just now for today, is qualified or having a claim to reward, assistance because of one's actions, qualities, or situation. So it's because of something you do or a quality you have or a situation you're in is what it's saying. You're qualified for having something. So there's a qualification in there. It doesn't automatically say the qualification is that you're born.
yeah. Well, I think that you're bringing up an interesting conundrum, but I think from the birthright point of view, we are deserving of certain things because we take up space and draw breath. And I think that that's something that some people don't really get because they have a high value that they put on having to earn it. But I didn't hear earn in that. It's a qualified for. Well, qualified is really the fact that you're here. Now, it doesn't mean that you're deserving of somebody keeping you for your entire life in the style you'd like to be accustomed to. This is something that has to be an individual situation, but you are deserving of certain things. And I've said before, I think that you have 4 things that you have the absolute, there are 7 inalienable rights, and that we'll talk about in a while, but you have the absolute right to be able to speak about what you particularly need, want, think, and feel. You have the absolute right to do that. You deserve to be able to put in some information that you're willing to share about yourself. Here's what I'm thinking, here's what I'm feeling, here's what I need, here's what I want. And as I've said before, I call that the personal weather report in my book, Hijackal for Couples, but it's like, as long as you don't say anything about anybody else, you have the right to speak your truth about yourself. And you deserve to do that. And why this is the place that I want to start our conversation is because so many people don't think they deserve to speak up. They don't have any boundaries. They don't feel they have the right to have a boundary. They feel that they have to be accommodating of everybody else and their needs and wants and thoughts and feelings. And that's just not the equation that I put out there. So how about that for a beginning place, Laura?
Well, you certainly adjusted my model to be more like birthright and deserving can be similar. And just because I take up space, I am deserving of this. I have the right to think, feel, need, and want. And I think that's very powerful. thinking in that way it takes on a whole new paradigm. Like, what do I think and what do I want for myself
Yeah.
and what do I need for myself? And it's also not only well, so deserving has a lot of responsibility in there. It's not just like, yes, I take up space, but I have to know what I think, feel, need, and want,
Yeah.
that
And
I
and
can
that
take charge of. That's all in the I, like we've said in previous discussions. It's like, well, I want you to do that. That's not, am I deserving of you changing? No, I'm deserving of what I want, and I can take responsibility for having what I want. So I just want to make that distinction, but go ahead.
well, I would say that I'm not so sure about, I want to clarify between having what I want and deserving. I'm I am I'm deserving of giving voice to what I want. But if I'm not willing to do a darn thing to get it, it ends there. I really mind. There's a book that came out about 30 years ago by Arnold Patton, and it's called You Can Have It All. And it was a book that it was supposed to be so inspirational that, think big and you can have whatever you want. And if you just use these mind tricks, you can have it and change your mindset and do all of this. And I said, great. If you can have it all, that means you can win the lottery, you can be in a tornado, you can get destroyed by a financial crisis, you can have it all. And so I think we have to make a distinction there, because we don't want it all. And to be able to say, this is what I want, you deserve to be able to put that out there. That doesn't mean you're entitled to receive it. So there's a switch.
There's a great distinction between deserving and entitled. So you deserve to put it out there and then do what it takes to get it, or what are we talking about now?
Well, if there's something that you can do, I have a spiritual teacher for a long time who used to say, tell God what you want, and then do everything you can do to get it. So I think that there is that, you have to be willing to put something in motion, not just the words. Because if you just say, well, I want to win the lottery. I mean, obvious example. So does everybody else.
I deserve to win the lottery.
Exactly. Like, well, did you buy a ticket? Right? No, I didn't buy a ticket. Well, how is that going to happen? So it's taking some action, and it's a silly example, because I was doing a workshop not too long ago with somebody who made this comment, and it kind of shocked me. She said, well, if you want something spiritual, my spiritual guides say that you have to command, demand, and expect it. And I went, what? Right? A command, demand, and expect. So immediately my mind went to, okay, let's take that universally. So everybody's going to command, demand, and expect. So the United States wants ISIS to be done with. So we command, demand, and expect it. ISIS wants to rule the world. So they command, demand, and expect it. And what do we have? Nobody gets what they want, right? So we have to be very, very careful when we're talking about these things, in my opinion, because you put out these grandiose ideas that you can have anything. But if you cannot believe that you deserve to have something, you're not going to get it. I mean, somebody may give it to you by chance. Somebody may enable you and give it to you, which means that they didn't consider your emotional, social growth. But it's unrealistic. So if you don't think that you deserve to have a good life, then you're not going to take steps to have a good life.
So there's two comments going on here on our chat. Thank you for joining us, Lorna and Gail. Gail says, I always love the show. Great practical information. Thanks. We love to stimulate that. And Lorna's here, and she said, I think deserving could be replaced with the word worthy. What do you think?
Well, I think on the downside, yes, Lorna. I think on the downside, that's true. Like, oh, am I worthy of it? But to be deserving, it has a slightly different connotation to me. That the worthy goes to the earning it. You know, I have the right to have it,
Mm-hmm.
and I've earned it. But deserving, I think, has, and it's just me, you know, nobody died and made me right. But I think deserving has a more internal component that, and you could put the two words together, I'm sure. You know, as my mind is flipping around on that, I can see exactly why you might replace it to that. But if I don't feel worthy of something, I'll certainly not get it. But if I can get my head around the fact that because I breathe, I deserve to be assertive. How about that? And that will change something. Like, I believe, and I've written about this, of course, I believe that when you recognize that you have the right to say what you think, feel, need, and want without including anybody else in those words in your description of what you think, feel, need, and want, then you really start to own something, and you get that you have the right to do that, and that's assertion. That I can be assertive. It's not aggressive to ask for what I need and want, but if you don't feel worthy, to use Lorna's words, you don't believe you have the right to say what you think, feel, need, and want. So you've got a huge journey ahead of you.
Yeah, so we've got words. Deserving, worthy. I like the word birthright. So your word is deserving, my word is birthright, and Lorna, your word is worthy. But when we come down to it, what I'm hearing is it comes to being very clear, knowing that we have the divine birthright, we do deserve, and we are worthy of saying what we think, need, feel, and want, and taking full responsibility for having that in the world and figuring out how we can. There's a lot of things to reconcile, you know, our own issues with other people in particular, because when we're doing the expressing of what we want, it's really hard to express it in I terms only. So many
Very.
people go back to that old, and some people think it's new, psychology methodology of when you do this, I feel that.
Yeah. That's the I message, and it was taught for so long as part of communication courses. And when I had the epiphany of realizing that that was just a disguised blame, that's when I developed the personal weather report. Because when you say, I feel this way when you do that, that makes you responsible for how I feel. And that's never true. I choose how I feel. I choose what I think. I know what I need. I know what I want. You don't tell me that. And
well, it's
so
giving your
that's
power away, right?
exactly. So when you use an I message, all you do is disguise the blame in a formula. And I'm not a fan, as you
I
can
even
tell.
simplify it, like where I have to start, because the I think, I feel, I need, I want can be really hard in the moment. To simplify it just a little bit, it's like, what do I actually want as an outcome from this? If I can just say, okay, well, I want to feel not stressed. I want to feel love. I want to, you know, and then how can I get there? What, you know, what am I feeling now? What do I need
Mm-hmm.
to get there? And it's all about what I can do, not what they need to do. Because the minute we expect somebody else to do it, we also give away our power. We give away our power for happiness. Like they have to do something in order for me to be happy, which is not,
Exactly.
it is not true. So so interesting that this conversation of deserving starts with the personal weather report. It's like, I have the right to feel this. And if we and think this and want this and need this, and know that certain things aren't okay, and make decisions for myself about that. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's certainly right. And decisions that are in alignment with your values, which you may not have figured out either.
Mm.
Like, how many people actually go through the exercise? I have all my clients do an exercise that I developed called the Values Shuffle. And until they know what they value and can prioritize them, then how do you know how to fit all this together? Because then you'll be hitting off what other people value and what other people want and the expectations of other people and people who are addicted to drama and all that kind of thing. And so there you are, like a ball in a pinball machine, and somebody else is pulling the trigger. So you have to take back all that power, as you said earlier, and say, okay, who am I? What do I stand for? Like, and all this is in Kaizen for couples. So even if you're not in a couple, read the book, because it's 2 chapters on the personal weather report. But we have to know what our values are, what our vision for our life is, what our beliefs are. That means your belief about money, your belief about the world, your belief about people, your belief about spiritual matters, all your beliefs. And then what are my current purposes? What am I up to right now? Where's my focus? And if we don't go through those exercises, then we are that pinball. We just get up in the morning and somebody calls, or we have to go to a meeting or whatever, and we're just jumping. We're just jumping from here to there. And so intrinsic to knowing who you are and knowing your deserving, your worth, your birthright, whatever word you put on it, is an inside job, and you have to do that inside job. And most people aren't willing to sit still long enough to do it because they think they should be out there doing it, being a human doing instead of a human being. And my partner and I wrote the book Soul Solitude, taking time for our souls to catch up. You have to be willing to sit and actually be with yourself, and sit then and inquire into yourself and find the great joy and pleasure of solitude.
And by the way, your books can be found here at forrelationshiphelp.com. That's
Or Amazon.
Or Amazon. But certainly you have such a wealth of information here at your website that I wanted people to know where they can find you for those resources. And going back to the worthiness and the feeling of deserving, or even that it's my birthright, I almost feel like guilty. Like, there's some early programming that goes on with so many of us, not everybody. There's people who think they're entitled to everything. And I don't know if there's
millennials.
Well, yes, it could be a lot of millennials. There's people who think they're entitled to everything, but underneath it is really a feeling of lack of worthiness, but they hide it with a feeling like I should have this, because they don't want to admit they have this feeling of worth.
Super confident.
Yeah, the super confident. And then, so they're using it as a mask. And then there's those of us that just feel like, okay, I know I logically know I'm worthy, or I deserve this, but something in my gut just over time has said, really? Are you sure? You're not really good enough. There's that not good enough message that somehow got instilled, and it's like so human. It's like, if you feel that and you haven't admitted it, it's okay. You can admit it now.
I think the majority of people have that. Even the ones who are running around feeling entitled, they've learned a situation where they say, well, I'm entitled, so maybe you'll give it to me, but I'm actually scared I'm not going to get it. So I think you're absolutely right in that we have to believe that we deserve to take up space and draw breath, that the very fact that we do exist has some inalienable rights. Now, when I was 19, I was in the library in the small town in which I was born. And at that time, it was a pretty redneck, blue-collar town, and I lived in the wrong side of the tracks. And so it was particularly redneck, blue-collar. And I didn't fit at all. Like, here I am with these people, and I'm going, oh, my God, I was born to the old Oompa Loompas, So I spent a lot of time in the library. And I had just gone through I took myself to church when I was 3 because I was interested. And so I followed that teaching for the church around the corner until I came to a place where I said, there has to be more. This is not enough. So I was in the library looking for more. And there was just a small section of books in the Dewey Decimal System in the 100s, which is philosophy and religion, right? And they were over a radiator, so I remember them really well. And I was walking by there thinking there has to be more, and a book fell off the shelf, and it was called Yoga, Youth, and Reincarnation. So I'm 19 years old, and that's a long time ago. Nobody used the word yoga. I mean, that was just weird beyond belief. I got this book. I devoured this book. I started practicing hatha yoga. You know, there are eight parts of yoga. We sometimes think that yoga is just the physical, but that's only one part. That's what's called hatha yoga. But yoga is Raja Yoga, the royal path. And there are lots of pieces to it. And so I started working with that. So I became interested in the chakras. And there is wonderful writings by a woman called Anodia Judith. And she aligns these chakras and demonstrates that with all psychological data. I mean, she's not a woo-woo writer. She's very well researched. And aligns our inalienable rights with our chakras. So our root chakra is the one that says, I deserve to be here. I deserve to take up space and draw a breath. So if we haven't addressed that root chakra, that survival chakra, we're not going to feel deserving at all. Because we think we're trespassing on somebody else's land, on somebody else's life, or if I just stay small and quiet, they won't know I'm here. And you were just saying that about our early life, how we get there. Well, how many people have heard, you know, if I want to hear from you, I'll ask. Or if you're going to keep crying, I'll give you something to cry about. So therefore, you don't exist. I tell you if you exist. I tell you if you're good enough. I tell you when to speak. And so if we've had that in our upbringing, we're going to have it, and we're going to have to deal with it.
I love the idea of understanding that we are deserving as a birthright, as a root chakra, inalienable right. A lot of the work I do when I do hypnosis with clients is on reinforcing that that message that is our authentic message, our true message, and overriding the messages we got from our parents and our culture. I mean, it's not just our parents. Culture says this because if I'm walking around with this and you're walking around with this and he's walking around with this and we all kind of collectively agree, and we're all walking around with this. So we have to, hypnosis is about reprogramming the mental patterns in our brain our belief systems to align them with what's true. So when you do the values work, when you do the belief work, and you discover the beliefs that have been driving your life that are not in alignment with your values, now we can go back into hypnosis and rewire the brain. I mean, the brain, it takes something to rewire. Hypnosis is one way. In my opinion, though, everything is hypnosis because we are suggestible beings. You know, when a parent says to a child what you just said, if you want to cry about something, I'll give you some, that is a hypnotic message that is interpreted and repeated by oneself. Like all hypnosis, by the way, is self-hypnosis. We're the ones taking on those messages and repeating them to ourselves and making like a rut in the road, in a neural pathways, just like a rut in the road. The good news about that is that rut in the road, if you don't use it, will wash over if you make a new rut that says, I'm deserving, I have a birthright, I have a chakra that tells me so. That chakra is here. That energy center is in my body. This is ancient wisdom. I am breathing, therefore I am worthy. So as we repeat those messages to ourselves, what happens? We understand that we deserve to take up space. We're here for a higher purpose. We can state what we think, feel, need, and want. So I want to encourage everyone to think about their thinking and start thinking differently based upon what you're saying today here and what we're talking about with the birthright, the inalienable right, the worthiness and the deserving that each of us has to exist in our precious nature, you know, what we deserve.
Yeah. And you know, you're absolutely right, Laura. And I love that explanation of hypnosis. And I really encourage people to explore that Because there's another piece. You know that saying, I don't remember who said it, but when you light another person's candle, it doesn't diminish your light. So you don't take from anyone when you are deserving, but there's a strange internal mental scale that we have to adjust that says, oh, just for me to be worthy or deserving or have a birthright does not take something away from another human being. That's when communication skills come into play, and conflict management skills and negotiation skills is when we have different needs and wants and thoughts and feelings. And then we learn to speak well together and join and be collaborative and get the best result for both of us. But many people don't have those skills. You know, I spend a lot of my time helping couples and individuals develop those skills because they don't have them. And so their life as a result they don't want, and yet they don't know how to fix it because they don't know how to do it. And so I really want to throw that into the conversation, that because you speak up and say, I want this, it doesn't mean you're taking it away from somebody else. It just means you're throwing something into the collaborative conversation and you're showing up as present.
And when I want something and you want something and they're not the same, that's when we get into that conflict resolution. If we're willing to stay in the conversation or agree to disagree, it's not that we're both deserving. We recognize that we're both deserving. Then you can have a new conversation. It may not be the easiest one. I mean, you brought up earlier conflict between what America wants and what some of our not so friendly neighbors want. So how do, we can't even talk because we want different things, right?
Well, we can, but we have to be willing to.
Right. Well, if I want this and they want that and they're not at all near each other and I feel deserving of this, then where do we go?
Well, you said a really important thing. You stay in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Like I teach negotiation in the MBA program at the University of Texas at Dallas. And I tell people all the time, and they're always surprised when we develop this conversation, that negotiation is not a hit and run, whoever gets away with the most wins. That in fact, Charles and I developed a paper that I actually use in the class. There are two kinds of negotiation that are talked about a great deal, distributive and integrative. Distributive is when you go and want the best deal you can get at a used car place. And you're never going to see the person again, so you just kind of want to hit and run. Integrative is when you want to keep the relationship and you want something. But we developed a system of negotiation called associative negotiation, which is real. Instead of being win-lose or win-win, it's own. We both really own the fact that who we are and what we are up to, and that we want to enter into this conversation, and that it will have long-term benefit for both of us by agreement. We agree to stay in that negotiation and association long enough to demonstrate that deep trust that we can grow something wonderful for both of us. And we need that in every relationship, particularly relationships of, our partners, that we're in associative negotiation with them. And that, again, takes a whole lot of skill. And where do you learn that? Well, if you're not in that MBA program, you're not going to learn it, because all my students have told me that they've never taken anything like that before. That's not a real surprise, because I tend to do things differently. But if you really want to engage, then you need to become willing to look at yourself deeply, willing to look at maybe your paradigm isn't serving you very well, and that's where you're getting the feeling of not being deserving from. Because you don't know how to ask. You don't believe you take up space and draw breath, and that's all you have to do in order to be assertive. I mean, I have a whole seminar, an hour and a half webinar on creating assertiveness. Now, obviously, you've got to do a lifetime of work in order to make benefit of that webinar, but be assertive. Nobody ever died when you said, well, this is what I want. You know, I mean, to just be able to have the willingness and the strength of being to say, well, this is what I'd like, and lay it on the table like that. You know, here's what I'd like to happen, and they put it between you on the table. See if the other person picks it up and says, oh, why would you like that? I'm interested in that. Or if the other person says, well, who do you think you are for wanting that? Now you've learned two different things about the potential for the relationship you're in.
It's a wonderful thing to learn and to propagate. We need more conversations like that so we can. I love what you said about the own. So is that the associative model of negotiation?
Yeah.
The we can grow as long as both are committed to we can grow some. Would you be open to growing something wonderful for both of us?
Exactly.
But dealing with a party that's in the hit and run, that's not going to happen. If one comes with own and the other one doesn't, both have to come with own, right?
Yeah. And sometimes you can get to own by going through win-win.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody's interested, I'm happy to send the paper that we wrote on associative negotiation when we created it. But it's a far more cooperative, collaborative way of coming to the table.
Right.
Whether that's your kitchen table or that's the UN, it's a far better way because it deals with the people deeply valuing who they are and therefore valuing other people. You don't come into it, all the work that I do with hijackals. Well, hijackals, those relentlessly difficult people, they come into it to win, 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 and I don't care a bit about what happens to you. So if you're in a relationship with a hijackal or you had a parent who's a hijackal or a boss, you got to learn a different strategy because they're out to just absorb you, walk over you, my way or the highway, and you don't matter, and let me make you as small as possible. But if you're with a person who has a fair degree of emotional intelligence and understands there are three things that I believe every decent relationship has to have, every emotionally sane relationship has to have. That's equality, reciprocity, and mutuality. And if you don't have those three things in a relationship, it's going to wear out. It's going to diminish, to struggle. And how many of us are equipped within ourselves, because we've done our own inner work, equipped within ourselves to participate in a relationship that is based on equality, reciprocity, and mutuality? It's huge. It's huge stuff. But we have the opportunity of a lifetime. We've been given the opportunity of a lifetime. Learn something. Learn about yourself. Learn how to express yourself. Learn to take up space and draw breath and go, yay, and therefore I can say what I think, feel, need, and want. As long as I don't make assumptions or presumptions or speak about anybody else and how they feel or think or need or want.
Bravo.
I have that right, so let's not miss this lifetime, right, by cowering some corner and not liking that other people don't treat us well. Let's step up. Let's step up and have a lot of love in our interaction, a lot of curiosity about the other person. By the time we become adult, we shouldn't need the ego gratification of always having it be about me.com. Right? So become curious about other people and, oh, that's interesting. Even though it's diametrically opposed to what you love, you say, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. How did you come to that conclusion? When did you first realize that? And when you start to help the other person process what they're thinking and feeling and needing and wanting, they make space. Now, I talk to a lot of people who never get to the space to ask me any of those questions. But that's not my job. It's about helping other people come to those places. But that's where you want to get. And I think once you recognize that, what you do, Laura, at Transform Today is amazing because people can then go to you and say, I do want to rewire. I recognize that I'm on a wrong circuit here and it keeps getting me what I don't want. or it doesn't get me what I do want.
Mm.
What could be the thing there? I always believe in negotiation that you want to get the most of what both people want and the least of what they don't want. So you've got those two things going on when you're negotiating. How can we both get the most of what we want, and how can we both avoid getting what we don't want?
It's it's amazing. It's hard, it's not easy. I think we're on to another topic here that we might want to do on our next show, cultivating peace between uh, intense times and in with opposing belief systems. I think we can have a really rich time of talking about that. We've started here the negotiation process, the curiosity process. I know I went to a lecture at USD here a couple of weeks ago with the founder of the Center for Common Ground, and they are doing peace work around the world that is unprecedented. It's all about finding first common ground so you can have those conversations of, get we're not as different as you think. Yes, we have differences. Let's know that we are like we are all deserving of certain respect, and we have common ground. We can see that we're not 100% different, and then expand into the conversations you're talking about. So I think this is a great place to end today and give a lot of people things to think about. The good news is you can replay this live show over and over and over, because Rhoberta, what you revealed is so powerful. There's a lot of tools in here, resources. Go to forrelationshiphelp.com if you want to review any of those. You can even get in touch with Rhoberta to get her white paper, The Negotiation. Transform Today is mine if you want to get information on business development, hypnosis. Will be right there for you. So any final encouraging, positive, or otherwise comments?
Well, I just want to encourage everybody to remember about the root chakra of survival. You actually deserve to be here. That's how you deserve to be here, is that 1 in a gazillion chance that that particular sperm met that particular egg, and all those other sperm didn't meet it. So therefore, you are special and you deserve to be here. And so behave like it.
And thank you, Lorna, for the props. And we are glad you're here. We'll be back next time with another edition of Transform Your Relationships. Follow us, and you'll get notified when we're live again. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.